Hey traders, welcome to Master the Market, where we help you become a market master. In today's video, I want to talk about why I think volume is the #1 most underrated indicator when it comes to day trading. And I'm going to talk about exactly how I used volume today to make a profit of $1,030. So let's get right into it. I want to start off with the trade because I think this trade is a really great example of the rest of the concepts that we're going to talk about in this video. And in order to get into this trade, let's take a very quick look at the Market Master group. This trade came straight from our gappers list. Most of my trades that I take in the morning do tend to come from this list of stocks that are gapping up in pre-market. And the simple fact of the matter is that these stocks that are moving in pre-market, they usually have very strong volume, they have a lot of volatility, and for the most part, they tend to have a press release or some kind of news or an earnings report that is associated with that move. These are going to be the best stocks then to take for a potential gap and go setup once the market opens. And we can see, if we take a look at the gappers from this morning, KTTA is one of the top stocks that is gapping up. It was up about 64% from its previous day's closing price, about 30 minutes before the market opened. Now, once the market opens, what we do is we post a list of the stocks from that gappers list that have the best chances of a gap and go, and we give you their opening range breakout level. Our opening range breakout bot is then going to be programmed to alert us whenever one of these stocks is moving above the opening range breakout price. So all of that being said, KTTA at 9:35 this morning, pretty much right after that opening range was formed, started to move above its opening range breakout price of $2.38. Now, the reason I'm saying all of this is because this opening range breakout was why I took my small initial starter position in this stock, but the volume itself is why I decided to then add some more shares into this trade to really try to maximize my return on the trade. And we can see here, if we zoom into the market open, KTTA at 9:35 started to move above that opening range breakout price of $2.38. I'll go ahead and just draw a line here to represent that breakout. I took my initial starter position into that move. Now, when I say starter position, what I mean by that is instead of buying my entire position all at once, what I like to do is scale in and out of my trades. So if I know that my maximum position size based on my risk level is going to be maybe 4,000 shares, then I might take a starter position of 1,000 or 2,000 shares initially and only look to add the rest of those shares once the trade thought process is kind of confirmed by what I see in the price action. So that's exactly what I did here in this case. I took that initial starter position into KTTA for the opening range breakout, and then I added the rest of my shares once the volume started to confirm my thought process for the trade. What I mean by that is if we take a look here at the volume candles underlying in the back of the chart, we can see that as the stock kind of pulls back a little bit here from that opening range breakout and from the test of the VWAP, the volume starts to dwindle down a little bit from when it was breaking out itself. We then see that once the market starts to grow back up and it starts to push above the VWAP, we're starting to get a very strong spike up in the volume itself. That's exactly what I was looking for to confirm this breakout and to confirm that the buyers are in control of this stock. I then added the rest of my shares into this move above the VWAP, and I was holding a 4,000 share position at that time. And if we zoom back a little bit and take a quick look at the pre-market session, we can see that the pre-market highs up here are just over $3.20 with a high of $3.27. So I knew that that area was going to be potential resistance if we got there from this breakout. And we can see that we get this push up here, a big quick spike through that 320 area, and then it starts to pull back. So I was locking in a portion of my profits into that 320 area. That is something that I always recommend our traders to do. If you're taking an opening range breakout and the stock is then moving up into those pre-market highs, naturally that's going to become an area of resistance. So it's always recommended to scale out at least a portion of your shares at that area to lock in some profits and to take a lot of risk and a lot of pressure off of the trade. So from there we can see we get a little bit of a pullback. The pullback is very quickly bought up and it starts to push higher. Once we get this rejection from the 350 area though, this to me was starting to look like it was a false breakout above the pre-market highs. So I decided to scale out the rest of my shares And again, I was able to lock in a $1,030 profit on this trade using simply the opening range breakout for my initial entry, and then some very basic volume analysis to add the rest of my shares. Now, I want to take a very quick look at another stock from yesterday, GPUS. This was the biggest mover that we've seen in quite a while, honestly, in the stock market. This stock gapped up from the Friday closing price of $1.37 to an open price yesterday of $3.17, and then ran all the way up to a high that same day of $9.08. So massive runner, obviously, and we can see pretty much the same concept that we just talked about with the volume multiple times here throughout the day with this stock. So again, we see overall very strong volume in the stock, but we can see that during these little pullbacks, the volume is slowing down a bit when compared to the moves to the upside. And typically people associate lower volume with a bad trade. But the simple fact of the matter is that if the overall trend is to the upside and the volume is slowing down into those pullbacks and into those dips, what that means is that people are not very eager to sell into those dips. There's not a lot of supply coming in, and that can actually be a very bullish sign for the continuation of the overall uptrend. And that's exactly what we see here with GPUS from yesterday. We can also see a very great example here if we zoom in from about 10:02 to about 10:22. For about 20 minutes, we have this consolidation here where the stock is kind of just trading sideways and holding above the VWAP. And we can see that the volume is significantly lower during this time frame and during this consolidation than it was at any other point during the morning so far. From there, once it starts to curl back up out of that consolidation zone, we get these big spikes up in the volume telling us that people are very eager to buy this stock. There's a lot of demand ready to come into this stock. And obviously, since the volume was so low during this consolidation, there's not a lot of selling going on, and people are not so eager to sell the stock. Simply put, that is kind of what I'm looking for when I'm trying to buy a dip in a stock, and I'm using my volume analysis to do so. Okay, so to summarize very quickly, I start off my morning by looking at the gappers list. I want to see stocks that already have strong volume, a lot of volatility, potential news associated with that move, and this is going to be added to my list then for a potential gap and go. Once the market opens, I want to see that we have an opening range breakout and, of course, very strong volume. I'm not necessarily talking about 5 to 10 million shares. I want to see that these stocks are potentially trading 50 million shares, even 100 million shares, because what that represents is that this is not just retail traders trading these stocks. All of that volume is probably going to be associated with institutional investors, potentially hedge funds, and when they're buying up these stocks, that's when there's potential for a really big move like what we saw with GPUS yesterday. And from there, the next step for me in order to actually get into a trade with these stocks will be to look for an initial entry into that opening range breakout, and then I'll do some very quick volume analysis to start scaling in the rest of my shares, looking for a decrease in volume into the pullbacks, and then an increase in volume once that momentum starts to pick back up, telling me that there is a ton of demand ready to pour into this stock, and that is just going to validate my overall thought process for the trade and validate the bullish trend. So to wrap up this video very quickly, I want to give a few quick shout outs to some of the traders in the Market Master group. We were all over this trade in GPUS in a group yesterday, and we had AUS888 who was able to get a quick 10% scalp at the open in this stock. Shout out to him. We also had Brooklyn, who was able to make their daily goal with GPUS from this trade. We had Airdrie, who was able to lock in some profits and finish up the day with this one trade as well. So shout out to you guys. Well done keeping an eye on these opening range breakouts. And if you're interested in coming and joining us and getting access to these trade setups as well, along with our detailed trade plans and our live custom scanner streams, all of that is found in the Market Master group. There's going to be a link down below in the description for you to get signed up. Anyway, I hope you found some value in this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and good luck with your trading.